All right, excellent. Okay, so let me go ahead and introduce our guest. I'm so thrilled to have Shellye Archambeau with us today. Um, she is the former CEO of Metric Stream, who Reid Hoffman, the co-founder and former executive chairman of LinkedIn, describes as the woman who pulled off the most incredible Silicon Valley turnaround you never heard of. Archambeau currently sits on the boards of Nordstrom, Verizon, Roper Technologies, and Okta. She advises the Royal Bank of Canada, Capital Markets, and Forbes Ignite, as well as growing startups. She is regularly named on Who's Who lists in technology and is the protagonist of the Harvard Business School case study, Becoming a CEO. She is the author of Unapologetically Ambitious, Take Risks, Break Barriers, and Create Success on your own terms, a book that will inspire you and provide the tools to enable you to fight the battles, make the trade-offs, and create the life you want. In her spare time, she is a Forbes contributor, runs the Gourmet Dinner Club, and writes a blog that provides career advice, insight, and other musings from her career. And man, without further ado, I want to just welcome you, Shellye, and thank you so much for joining us today at Mays Business School, Texas A&M, obviously via the power of Zoom from California.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to be with everybody today.
Yeah, it's excellent. And of course, today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We're going to do very much sort of like an interview style. So, and it's in some ways, it's kind of a bit unique for us to have a little smaller audience. So in some ways, it's good because I'm hoping that you'll all have some good quality time with Shellye. And I'll make sure that I leave enough time for you to ask questions directly to her if you want. So let me just get right started, Shellye. I am curious, what does Shellye Archambeau's average day look like?
Actually, that's a really good question. These days, now that I'm in, I call it my phase 2. So I've passed my CEO baton on about 3 years back, and now I'm serving on boards, advising companies and startups and coaching CEOs, et cetera. I actually don't have a standard day. You know, they vary from a day like today, which was a series of calls and catch up because I took a little vacation, as I mentioned, to go see my parents. So today was a lot of catch up. But tomorrow, I think I start at 7 a.m. and my last session meeting tomorrow ends at about 6:30 p.m. And I'm not in a full-time job, so it's crazy. But everything's, as everybody else is via Zoom these days, but traveling's beginning. I actually travel for my first board meeting next week. So travel is indeed coming back, but my days are very full.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to travel coming back. I mean, it may take a little bit of time when, you know, where everybody feels comfortable and so forth, but certainly for fun, I'm definitely looking forward to traveling coming back. What do you like to do? Curious, Shellye, what do you like to do for fun?
I enjoy getting together with people. I'm a people person. So all the things that I haven't been able to do, I like getting together with people. I love the performing arts, whether it's dance or concerts, plays, musicals. I just enjoy all of that. And I like cooking and entertaining, hence the Gourmet Dinner Club that I talked about. And I enjoy spending time with my family and travel.
That's excellent. Yeah, I gotta tell you, I share a lot of you know, things that I also enjoy in common with you, with the performing arts, and Sarah, the associate director who's on the call as well. She's raising her hand. She'll attest that I like to. I'm always listening to classical music and opera in my office all the time. So excellent. All right. So I'm curious. There are not many successful minority female CEOs or executives in Silicon Valley. What did you do differently to land this career? Like, what is your superpower, Shellye?
Well, I would say there's two things. You know, what helped me achieve my goals that I set, you know, way back when. I actually decided in high school that I wanted to run a company one day. Was I've been very, very intentional about everything that I do. So I set goals and then I put plans in place to achieve the goals and I actually execute the plans. So I'm really intentional at what I do to make sure it's moving me towards what it is I'm aspiring to. Now, the superpowers that enabled me to really do that and execute on that are really two. The first being courage. You know, nobody's born with courage. Mother Nature makes sure of that. We are flight animals because we can't protect ourselves. But courage is actually a muscle that we can all develop. And I've consciously worked on building my courage muscle so that I'd be willing to take risks and step out there and do things that were uncomfortable. And then the second one is discipline. And I wasn't born with that either. I was the biggest procrastinator in school. It's just ridiculous. But I learned that when I actually was more disciplined about things, I got better results. And so I actually worked on this whole discipline piece. And it's funny, the way I did it, I'm a very competitive person. So I would just tell people what I was going to do. So if I mean, I'll give you an example. Even when it came to exercise, you know, I'd set a goal at the beginning of the year. They couldn't do it at the end of the, I set a goal to achieve by the end of the year that I couldn't do at the beginning of the year. And then I tell people, this is my goal. Hey, by the end of the year, I want to do one hand push-up, right? Okay. Well, the competitive piece in me was no way going to end up at the end of the year and have people ask me, well, Shelley, did you do it? And say, no, I didn't do it. So that gave me the motivation to actually go and do the work and what was required to actually make that happen. Well, I did that career-wise too. I tell people, here's what I'm going to go do. And then I had to figure out how to go do it. So, because I didn't want to win, I didn't want to look bad. So the discipline piece wasn't inherent at all, but I was able to build it by just step by step and frankly, using others.
Wow. I think we can all learn a lot from that lesson for sure. How did you pick your career roles? You landed amazing roles, amazing jobs, pretty much one after another. Was that intentional or luck?
Definitely intentional, but you know, luck always plays a role. So for instance, when I was coming out of Wharton, I took a very different kind of job. I decided that I wanted to be a CEO and I picked technology because technology was a growing industry, looked interesting. I said, great, I'll go be a CEO in technology. And then I looked around and the leading company back then, this is the 80s, leading company back then was IBM. So I said, great, I'll join IBM and become CEO of IBM. So yeah, pretty audacious and really naive, but that was the goal. So I do what I always do, which is I ask myself 3 questions. What is it I'm trying to achieve? Okay, I want to be CEO of IBM. 2, what has to be true for me to become CEO? Well, in answering that question, I have to go do the research. Who were the CEOs? What kind of careers did they have? Where did they start? What kind of jobs? What kind of lifestyle, right? All these things, what kind of education, whatever it might be, whatever I could find out. And then I'd ask myself, how do I make it true? So at IBM, I learned that every single CEO of IBM started out in sales. In sales. Now, was that something that I aspired to be, was to go sell computers? No, it wasn't. But it was a job that obviously a skill set that I needed to take. It seemed like that was the path to power. So I said, great, I'll start out in sales. Well, my friends thought I was nuts. I mean, you guys were getting your MBAs. You're like, wait a minute, you're going to go to a business school and instead of going off to like Wall Street or P&G to become a product manager, program manager, or go do international finance or all these sexy things, become McKinsey consultant, you're going to go sell computers, right? That's crazy. Well, that was what everybody did. So I said, all right, that's what I need to do because I want to be a CEO. So I started out in sales. And I will tell you, just a side note, I learned more in the years I was a salesperson that I leveraged throughout my career than any other job I held. So it's actually a great role. But at any rate, so it was intentional, pick sales. Then beyond sales, I'm like, okay, I want to be CEO, so I've got to get P&L responsibility. Well, at IBM, looking at what's the first P&L job you can get, great branch manager. What other kinds of jobs do branch managers have, right? What has to be true? And then I went after specific jobs. So yes, it was actually intentional. That doesn't mean it's always going to happen, but I find that if you're intentional and if you do the work and get the skills and background that are required, build the relationships, et cetera, you actually increase your luck because you increase your odds that what you want to happen will actually happen.
That's amazing. And I so wish our dean, Eli Jones, Dr. Eli Jones, could have joined us today because his background is sales. And that's what he did, his and I know what man it would have resonated with him tremendously what you just said. So that's great. All right. You've mentioned that you always recommend people to focus on developing their strengths instead of focusing on their weaknesses. Why do you recommend this? And can you provide an example on how you've done this successfully?
Sure. I know this sounds super counterintuitive because you get feedback, you find out what your weaknesses are, so you try to strengthen your weaknesses. But in all honesty, what I've learned is you get selected for jobs or promotions or new opportunities or to participate or to lead based upon your strengths. Someone who is a good speaker will be the one to ask to speak. Someone who is a not so good speaker but works really hard and becomes a mediocre speaker still isn't going to get asked to speak. So I can go spend a whole lot of time building up my weaknesses to try to get a little bit better, but they're never going to be as good as somebody for whom they are strengths. And what you get known for are your strengths. Think about it. You think about people, oh, really good organizer, right? Great analytical mind. I mean, think about the people you know. And what you tend to think about them is what strengths they bring, right? Not how good they've made their weaknesses. So if I'm going to go spend 4 hours building up a skill, I'm going to pick one that I'm already good at, because you know what? That 4 hours is going to make me even better versus the 4 hours I'm going to scrape by and make my weaknesses maybe a little bit stronger, but it's not going to become like the stellar strength. Now, let me just clarify. That doesn't mean that if you have a weakness that is actually degrading, that you should leave alone. No, all of your skills have to at least be at par. I'm talking about building up strengths, right? And things beyond that. So if you look at time value of money and the biggest return you get, I just find you get a bigger return if you continue to invest in areas that are already strong to make them even stronger.
Yeah, I think that first part you hit on was really spot on. I mean, when you just look around even within your area that you work, the people around you, I would have to agree that the things that they're known for are certainly their strengths. I mean, when you think of them, you immediately think, X versus Y or versus Z and so forth. So I don't think there's any question about that. That's a really good point. I understand you are a big believer in planning. Can you say more about your drive towards planning and how that influenced your career?
Yeah, so I touched on it earlier, but
Yeah.
I'll expand it. The whole planning piece, that is my secret sauce. I flat out, it's just the secret sauce. Because what I find is, a lot of people set goals. They'll say, okay, one day I want to do this. Some people will take the time to build a plan, but very few people will actually execute that plan by making decisions every day consistent with the plan. And that's where the real power lies. Let me give you an example. And I write about this in the book. So I am I think I was about a sophomore. So I'm a sophomore in college. And I came from very, very modest means. And I need a new winter coat. Well, how long should a new winter coat last? What do you think? 7 years, right? 6 years, 7 years. So a new winter coat should last a long time. Okay. So, all right. Well, I had already set my goals of what I wanted in life. And so I went shopping at an outlet, bought this coat, came back, I put it on and show my roommate. And I do a little twirl and model it. She says, well, Shellye, it's a nice coat, but it's not that stylish, right? I mean, outlet. Yeah, so it's a little older. It's like a double-breasted piece and it's a swing coat. All right. Whereas the style back in the 80s when I was coming in was these tight-fitted pea coats, all right, that they had. And this was just the opposite. And I said, I know, but I wanted to be able to wear this coat when I'm pregnant. She said, what are you talking about? She goes, Shellye, you don't even have a boyfriend. And I said, I know, but ideally, I want to be married and I'd love to have kids early. So, right now I'm 19, but in, 6, 7 years, I'm hoping that I'm married and already pregnant with at least my first child. And she's like, What? Right? That's crazy. Well, I wore that coat for my first pregnancy and my second pregnancy. All right. So my point is, you make decisions today based upon your plan. I always assumed my plan was going to happen. Did it always? No. But a lot of times it did. And so when the plan happened the way I'd hoped, I'd actually made decisions consistent with the plan. So I was suddenly luckier. I was ready. I did that when it came to skills for jobs. You know, for instance, I started IBM and I told you I want to be CEO of IBM. So I'm looking around and you know what? All the executives are really good public speakers. I mean, they're good on their feet. They just seem comfortable. I mean, back then I was a nervous Nelly. I mean, you know, if I had paper in my hand and I'm talking to a big group, that paper might shake a little bit. I was not comfortable. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got to figure out how to do this. Otherwise, forget being CEO. I'm never even going to become an executive. Now, did I need it right then? Right then for the job I had? I'm in sales? No, I didn't need that skill. But I started working on that skill and working on that skill. And you know what? By the time I was moving up and suddenly the speaking, all that was just fine. So it wasn't anything that held me back. And I actually was able to develop it into a strength. So plan, decide what it is that you want and then put a plan in place to achieve it. And then make decisions every day consistent with that plan by being intentional. And that's how you get the power. It's almost like, compounding money. And I know you guys have to understand the value of compounding money. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to building a plan, because every decision you make, every choice you make is building on the other one. So that you're constantly moving forward versus going back and forth sideways.
Excellent. What role have mentors played in your career, Shellye? What advice do you have for those seeking mentors?
So mentors have played a huge role. I've had a bunch of mentors, a ton of mentors actually throughout my career. But let me explain an experience that really shaped how I approach mentoring. I was, probably 6 years at IBM, and IBM decided, okay, we want our high potential people to have mentors. So they asked us, who would you like your mentor to be? Okay, well, I picked a man. He was a couple levels above me. He knew me. I thought he liked me. And I said, all right, I'll pick Roland. So I put Roland's name down. Well, a few days later, I get a call. Shellye. Hi, Roland. Shellye, you put my name down to be your mentor. And I'm like, well, yeah, Roland, I thought you liked me. He says, Shellye, you've got me. Go get somebody else. And I was like, what? So I learned two really important lessons in that very short phone call. One, this whole mentor-mentee thing, it doesn't have to be formal. I had no idea that Roland considered himself a mentor. Two, I can have as many as I want. Roland told me to go get another one. So I literally put that on steroids. And I learned quickly, don't ask people to be your mentor. People are busy. They'll come up with reasons or excuses why they can't. It's nothing personal. They're just busy and they don't even know if you're going to be worth it. All right. So I didn't ask people to be my mentor. I just started treating them like a mentor. And I tell you in my book, step by step, how to adopt mentors. But I adopted mentors all over the place. So I literally have had a whole lot of mentors throughout. And it has been super, super helpful throughout my career. And by the way, people think of mentors as the person that you go to help you figure out what's the next step, what's your career plan, what have you. I mean, yeah, that's helpful and that is good. But I'll be candid, my most valuable mentors were people who helped me do the job I had. Because no matter what job you get, odds are 99% that somebody has done your job before. Go find them, learn from them. Why start like on home base when you can actually start on first base? Because you ask questions, you learn their learns, the whole bit. So I found that getting mentors to actually help me do my current job was the most impactful. You could talk to a lot of people about ideas on the next step, but until you ace your current job, you don't get that next job.
Yeah, Really, really good advice. The other thing I would say too is that you could have a mentor, I think, also in one particular subject, but that person may not necessarily be a mentor for you in other important subjects in your life too.
I fully agree with that, Richard, fully agree. And that's why I had so many. I mean, the key is you go to different people based upon what strengths they can bring to you, right? And what perspectives they can bring. But it's helpful to have a variety of perspectives because odds are you're going to have a variety of challenges. And some people are better at others. Some people are better on, okay, how do you do this whole personal interaction dynamic thing, right? Versus how do I actually create a strategy for, who knows, maybe my job is M&A, right? For how I actually select the right companies that we should go buy versus how do I actually put together and structure the most effective communications, right? Now, to me, those are three different things. The same person may not be expert in all those things. They'll find the people that are and leverage them. So absolutely.
Yeah. Most of us are regularly balancing a career, some of us with family, personal priorities. What's your approach, Shellye, to what people call work-life balance and your philosophy of work-life integration?
Yes, and thanks for throwing in that term because frankly, everyone, I cannot stand the term work-life balance. Cannot stand it. And the reason is, what is a balance? A balance is a static fixed structure, right? Two weights on each side, even at all times. Whose life is static? Not mine. I can't believe yours are, right? So suddenly I'm going to be judged on whether I'm keeping things in perfect balance as my life is kind of doing this. That's crazy. I have enough things to feel guilty about. I definitely don't need that. So no, I totally reject that. I believe in work-life integration. Yes, I wear a lot of hats, just like you do, right? I'm a mom, I was a CEO, I'm now a board director, a community person, maybe I'd be a churchgoer, mother, I mean, whatever it might be, right? You're wearing all these hats, but guess what? They're on the same head. So personal priorities, professional priorities, put those things together and now prioritize ruthlessly so you get done what needs to get done. And what that means, there are going to be some things don't get done. And you're going to have to either decide to live with it or find somebody else to do it. But that whole prioritization thing is so important because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. You just don't know what that something else is yet. So be intentional. Make sure you're just saying yes to the things that actually fit within your priorities and with what you feel, right, is important. So that when something else important comes along, you still have room on your plate to do it.
That's such good advice. And it's something I can tell you, firsthand, even myself, for example, I struggle with, right? As you get more and more, in a sense, on your plate, it becomes that much more important that you're very sort of intentional on, what you say yes to, and just learn to say no to certain things. It's not always easy when you want to be supportive, you want to, say yes to a lot of people and see what you can do to help them and so forth. But there's only so much time in the day. This is also why someone like myself is so appreciative of you, Shellye, for again, for taking time and doing this as well. So thank you.
No, listen, very welcome. I'm very, very focused at this phase of my life about impact and inspiration. I want more people to be able to achieve their aspirations, which is why I wrote the book. It just irritates the heck out of me that so many people don't even get the opportunity to contribute to, even 50 or 60% of their capability. And so I'm trying to provide tools and techniques and hacks and strategies to actually improve your odds to be able to do just that. That's why I wrote the book, and that's why I'm out there talking about it.
Yeah, just a minute. So I'm looking forward to that. I did want to ask you, before we get to the book, I did want to ask you, so you're a board director, you're on the board in multiple successful companies, including Fortune 500 companies such as Verizon. You're on the board of Verizon, you're on the board of Nordstrom and others. How did you land those opportunities? What has been the most challenging things in those roles?
Again, being intentional. I was probably in my early 30s when I realized, oh, wait a minute, there's something called a board of directors, and the board hires and fires the CEO. I want that job. So I added that to my list of goals. It's like, all right, I want to be a CEO, and then I want to be a board member. And I did the work, just like I said. Well, what has to be true? Well, did the research, and it turns out, most boards want new board members that actually have board experience, which seems like a catch-22. How do you get the experience if they want the experience? So I said, all right, fine. That means I need to get on a public board as soon as possible so I can build up experience. So at some point, it becomes my choice on what boards I serve. I looked at what skills they look for, what backgrounds, and then as I was building my career, I took that into account and chose jobs and roles that helped me optimize for that. So shortly after I got my CEO role, I then said, all right, I want to serve on a board and I'm ready now. And I went out and proactively, just like you look for a job, proactively let everybody know, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Here's what I bring to the table. Here are my skills. Here's whatever, et cetera. And sure enough, 2 years later, I guess it was 42 when I got on my first public board. So it's all about being intentional. Understand what's required, what's needed, but do the work in advance so that you can actually build those skills and build the experience as you're building your career. Versus, I can't tell you the number of calls I get from people saying, oh, Shelley, you serve on some great boards. I'd love to serve on a board, right? How do I do that? Well, they're now already in their 50s. Have done their careers, right? It's kind of late to add these new skills and these new experiences and the whole bit. So it's like, gosh, you should have thought about it 10 years ago. So planning, it just does an amazing job of helping you improve your odds to get what you want. Because for many of us, the odds are not in our favor.
Yeah, great message for our MBAs and our MS business students on the call right now. So I want to talk about your book. So what led you, Shellye, to write Unapologetically Ambitious? And what are the key takeaways readers are going to get from your book?
Sure. So I have tried throughout my career, Richard, to actually be pretty accessible. People would reach out to me, email, phone calls, text messages, whatever, and I responded. And they'd ask to meet me, pick my brain, hear my story, and I'd try to do that. But as I got more and more responsibility, I still responded, but I didn't have time to meet with everybody that wanted to meet with me. And it was killing me because part of the reason why I made time for that is because there weren't a lot of people doing the things that I was doing that looked like me. And so I wanted people to know that, hey, I'm a real person. I'm a real person and you could touch me. And therefore, if I'm a real person, I could do this, so can you. So the fact that I couldn't meet with as many people as I wanted to, I said, you know what, one day I'm gonna write it down. When I get to phase 2, I'm gonna write down the strategies and the approaches, the lessons learned, what worked, what didn't. I'm gonna write about the whys behind the action. So many books tell you what people did, but they don't tell you why they did it, or they don't share their full person. You see them as a business executive, but you don't see them as a parent or a spouse or a child or you don't see all of the other things that go on in life. And people don't tell you, life is hard. Life is hard. People don't tell you that. I want to tell people that. So therefore, writing the book was really meant to be a guide for people who are ambitious, to let them know, first of all, it's okay to be ambitious. That's why the title, Unapologetically Ambitious. Everyone has the right to be ambitious and no one should have to apologize for that. And 2, to share very specific takeaways, things that people can go do tomorrow to improve their odds to actually achieve what they want professionally, but also personally, because they're very intertwined. I live one life. That's why I said integrated. So you see that whole thing. When I had challenges with my daughter, when I did this, I share very candidly about all of this because we see so many perfect pictures. People say, oh yes, I took step 1, step 2, had a little hurdle, jumped over it, step 3, bam, right? No, it doesn't happen like that for anybody. I don't care what they tell you. So what happens is if you believe that it does, then when it gets hard for you, you think, oh my God, this is just too hard. I must not be cut out for this. Wrong. It's hard for everyone. Keep pushing, just take more help. And I talk about taking help and telling the universe what you want so the universe can help you. I talk about all of that in the book.
One of the things that's come from this special guest speaker series has been just a lot of top people like yourself, Shelley, who have phenomenal books. And one of the things, and I don't even know if I've shared this with Sarah, the associate director, or not, but one of the things that I've really thought about doing for quite some time now is starting something like, I don't want to call it a book club, but something like basically where we get, several copies of all of, for example, your book and some of the other top speakers that we've had on, keep them, in our office so that when any of our MBAs or any of our MS business students would like to, take a read, they get a chance to just come in, check it out and so forth. Because I got to tell you, some of the things you've already said this evening, really, really powerful message. And I think incredible lessons for our students to take away and really, live life, through some of those words. I got to tell you, really, I think it's an impactful and a powerful message. So I'll keep you up to date on that. But
All right.
that's and your book, I think, is going to be the first one we're going to purchase. Sarah, believe me, Sarah's a planner. She will hold me to that. So awesome. I'm curious. Okay, let's really get down to it. What has been your biggest failure? How did you overcome it?
Oh my goodness. Well, given the age and stage of this audience, let me share one early in my career. So I told you I started out in sales, and I had sold this big sale to Rite Aid Corporation. Rite Aid at the time had thousands of stores, and I sold IBM point of sale and then all the back end systems to support the point of sale, all the terminals. This thing was going to take about 5 years to roll out. It was worth tens and tens of millions of dollars. Huge. Not only was I going to overachieve my number, but my boss, his boss, right, all the way. I mean, this was a big deal. Executives from all over throughout the sales cycle had come in, met with the CEO, met with the customer. High visibility deal. Okay, about a month before equipment's going to start shipping, the CEO of Rite Aid calls me in. Apologies, I have allergies. And says, Shelley, I have bad news. We've decided, since we're going to spend so much money on point of sale, we're just going to invest in a point of sale company. What? Now, the worst part of this is not only am I going to totally miss my number, but because there was such visibility, I have to go back and now tell everybody, right, what's happened. In fact, that now everybody's missing. So I do. And it's awful. All kinds of loss reviews, deal analysis, what could I have done, all these things. When I run into people, they're kind of like, I'm in mourning. Oh, Shelley, I heard. Oh my God. I mean, it's that whole thing. I felt like such a failure. And for a couple days, I'm coming home and I'm acting like what? I'm just like down in the dumps. I'm rubbing the whole bit. And like the third day I come home, kind of in the same mood. My husband's like, Shelley, what's wrong? I said, you know what's wrong? I mean, oh my God, this deal, I've got these reviews. People are asking me all these questions, terrible, blah, blah, blah. And he looks at me and says, the mourning period is over. It's been 3 days. He said, Shelley, you're the same person you were 4 days ago before you got the news. Nothing's changed. This is a deal. Go find another one. Shake it off. He basically did the, build you up, kick you in the ass and push you out there. But I'll tell you, the biggest learning I had from that is he was absolutely right. Over time, what makes you a failure is not the failure. It's whether or not you accept the failure, that you don't learn from it and you don't move forward. Then you become a failure, right? So it's your choice. Okay, he was right. I was the same person before I got the news. So therefore, learn from it, move forward, and keep going, and realize a lot of people fail at stuff. Just make sure you keep moving forward and you learn from them and you'll be fine. So that was such an important lesson to me and really helped me as I move forward and had other issues happen. Because trust me, there's all kinds of stuff that's going to happen. I was CMO of a company, and CMO and EVP of sales of a company that ended up going bankrupt. Talk about a failure, right? I mean, so yes, there have been failures, but I've also had amazing successes. So you can. A failure doesn't define you unless you let it.
That's a great segue to my next question, which is, what are you most proud of?
So overall, my 2 children, but professionally, professionally, I'm most proud of the number of people that have worked for me that have gone on to become CEOs, run companies, C-suite executives. I'm most proud of the people that I've had a chance to touch, to develop, and to see be able to achieve even more than they thought they could achieve. That's what really gets me excited.
That's awesome. All right, I gotta ask you, what advice would you tell your 20, 30-year-old self? What advice would you give our MBAs and MS business students listening to you today?
Okay, first of all, I tell my 20-plus-year-old self, imposter syndrome, that voice, that little voice that creeps up whenever you have something new that you're facing, a new opportunity, a new job, a new role, going into a new group that says, wait till they figure out that you don't know as much as they think you know, right? Or what makes you think you're going to be successful? There's nothing special about you. That voice that's always kind of tearing away at you, reminding you of all the reasons you're going to fail, right? That voice, that imposter syndrome. I would tell myself, Shelley, it's not real. Everybody suffers from it at some point or another. Men, women, studies show it. Women more so than men, and women of color the most. But it's not real because it's in the air. Everybody suffers from it. It's like TV, right? Everybody can see it. It looks real, sounds real, can even feel real. You can get scared. And what happens when you get scared? Remind yourself this isn't real, right? If it gets too scary, you shut the thing off. That voice, it's not real. Shut that thing off. All right. 2, don't take yourself so seriously. And 3, take your vacation. Every single one of your days, take your vacation. It is not going to harm your career and it will improve your health.
Good advice. All right. I want to open it up now to our students that are on the call, because I'm sure they've got some really good questions for you. I mean, I got to tell you again, I myself taken away a lot of nuggets from this for sure. Really great advice, and thank you so much for sharing. All right, here we go. Aaron Buchanan, one of our MBA veteran, asks you, thank you for great advice provided this afternoon. When first considering what boards to serve on, would I be better served sticking to boards in my industry and that align with my subject matter expertise, or could I cast a wider net open to all opportunities?
Boards, let me just give you some context. Boards select people to serve on their board. Actually, let me preface that. Good boards select people to serve on their boards that bring skills that they feel are important to helping the company execute their strategy. So, the best companies to serve on are ones, obviously, in terms of where your skills are valuable for what they're doing. That doesn't have to be just in your industry. Many times people want folks that are actually maybe in different areas to join their board. I'll give you an example. You might have a company, I'll talk about one specifically. So at Verizon, Verizon, I run the nominating governance committee, but as we look at the skill sets we want, we're absolutely picking people in areas that touch Verizon's area or were important markets to us, but are not our areas. We have a healthcare CEO on the board. We have someone who was the former Secretary of Transportation in the government. Why? Well, because we want that government knowledge. There's a lot of regulation and rules that Verizon has to deal with. So no, don't think just your industry, but look at where your industry skill, right, can add value to companies. But you might absolutely, you can find opportunities where you can contribute as well as learn that are outside of your industry, because your industry expertise can be valuable, right? Much more broadly than just the industry in which you serve. Plus, you'll have less conflict.
Excellent. Aaliyah Naidi, Aaliyah is in our MS business program. She first says, thank you for sharing your insights and time with us, Shellye. In your book, Unapologetically Ambitious, You mentioned navigating the line between being assertive and aggressive. I feel like this really hits home for me. How would you recommend ways to tread that line, not only as an established business leader, but also as an entry-level employee?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And thanks for reading the book. It's interesting. If people in their careers have a road in which they need to walk down, need to operate within norms, et cetera, and you have this road. Well, women have like a lane, all right? Not the whole road, we've got a lane. And women of color, we've got like this narrow strip that goes down the center. Okay, so yes, the expectations are very different in terms of for all of us on what is ambitious, right? Versus what's aggressive and what's bullying, what's whatever. What I will tell you is I've found that the best way to, frankly, be ambitious is really by just setting my sights about what is it that I want and letting people know what I want. Now, that doesn't mean I walk around saying, okay, world, I'm going to be CEO, so get in line because I'm coming, right? No, I mean, people don't want to work with people like that. Instead, I would say to people, especially people that maybe are a level ahead of me or my manager or whatever, one day I aspire, and I wouldn't always pick the top job, but I might pick a job 3 levels above me. One day I aspire to be the vice president of marketing, or one day I aspire to be, the chief engineer, whatever it might be. And then you say, do you think I have the potential? That is such an easy layup question because they're going to say yes. Everybody's got potential, right? You're not asking for a commitment. You're not asking for a job. You're not asking for anything. You're just saying, hey, do I have the potential? Well, what have I just done with that question? I have told them what I want to do, right? But I did it in a way very non-threatening, not in your face. And I've also done it in a way which sets me up to maybe even recruit them to be a mentor or a sponsor. Because when they say, yes, I have the potential, I say, great. What advice do you have for me on, and then fill in the blank, on experience you think I ought to get, on skills I should develop, whatever it might be. And now they're going to feel compelled to give you an answer because they just told you you have potential. And when they give you an answer, you can go take that answer, right? Take the advice and then report back. Oh, thanks so much. You suggested I get the experience of blah, blah, blah. Well, I took on da-da-da. Here's what happened. And oh my gosh, I really appreciate it. Why do you do that? Because when you do that, first of all, they feel good because they kind of impacted you, right? They're having an influence. And they might even feel a little compelled, like they're now responsible for you because they've kind of told you what to do and you've kind of done it. And so they're kind of responsible. And anyway, if you rinse and repeat enough, and I talk about how to do this in the book, before you know it, you've got a mentor. Got a mentor. So, you don't have to walk around. It's not about being cutthroat. It's not about the people next to you are not your competition. There are hundreds of millions of people in this world. There are hundreds of millions of jobs in this world. Your coworker is not your competition, okay? So don't worry about that. Just worry about what you need to do, right? To build your skill, to build your experience, to get noticed, right? And be visible, all those things, but never do it on anyone else's expense. If anything, I have found that by shining the light on others, that's what I call it, shining the light on others, they'll actually shine the light on you, right? If I'm in a meeting and something, I'll say, oh my gosh, do you guys know what Paige just accomplished last week? Oh my God, let me tell you, she did blah, 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 right? Great, everybody's looking, oh, that's great, Paige, wonderful. And Paige is feeling all good about that, that feeling. She's gonna remember, you know what? Shellye was really nice about that. If I do something kind of interesting, she'll probably be one of the first people to say, hey, did you know what Shellye just did? Right? So shine the light on others, raise others up. And what I found is by helping other people, they tend to very genuinely want to help you back.
Yeah, great advice. John Lazar, one of our MBAs, says, howdy, Shellye. Thank you so much for taking time to speak with us today. You mentioned earlier, it is essential for us to work our courage and discipline muscles. Could you give us some things we should keep in mind while doing that? For example, things to avoid and things to focus on while doing so.
All right, so let me tell you how I built my courage muscle. Because remember I told you nobody's born with courage? So unfortunately, I had some really tough experiences growing up. I talk about it in the book because I grew up in the racially charged 60s and environments that weren't very friendly to me. So I learned the whole courage thing early, only because just going back into the classroom, walking to school, all that stuff took courage. But what I realized is, people are actually attracted to people who show courage. And I wanted so much for people to like me and respect me and the whole bit. And that's really what made me start to build the courage muscle. This was long before the whole business thing. And so what I decided was, okay, I am going to be the one. I'm going to be that person. I'm going to be the person that when people say, who's going to go first? It's me. Who wants to sign up for this? It's me. Who wants to lead? It's me. I am going to be that person who steps forward first. Even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's scary, I just committed to myself that I'm going to be that person. And let me tell you, I've done that throughout. I mean, I'll give you a real life example that was kind of stupid in hindsight, but so here I am with IBM. I'm not an executive yet, and I'm now off on a 2-week international management development for senior leaders that think have potential in Brazil. And we're there over a weekend and we get the Sunday off. And a couple of guys are talking about going hang gliding. Okay, I'd never been hang gliding. Okay, who wants to go? Me. Did I want to hang glide? I didn't care about hang gliding, but the courage muscle. Okay, me. So fine, 4 of us, 3 guys and me. We climb up on this mountain, right? We get to the top. This is in Rio de Janeiro. And let me tell you, there's no OSHA. There's no there is literally a wooden plank that runs off the mountaintop. Okay. And there are guys up there, and here's the people that are going to take us hang gliding. It's in tandem. And they're called, people who's taking you are called pilots. And so they give us about 5 minutes of, all right, you're going to put this on, right? When you get on, make sure when we're running off the plank, just keep running. Don't stop running. Don't pull this. Don't do that. But all set. Good. I mean, literally, that was the training. And then they're like, okay, so who's going to go first? Well, guess who had to raise their hand? Me. I'm going first because this is what I do. And so I went first. Well, as I'm sitting there at the edge of the plank and he's counting down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we're supposed to start running, I suddenly think, Shellye, what the hell are you doing? You are married, you have 2 kids. Nobody knows you're up here on this mountain getting ready to run off, right? I'm like, oh my God. And then he says, go. And I run off that mountain. Okay, now, that might have been a little stupid. I didn't tell my husband I was doing that until after I did it. Pardon me. But my point is, you can decide. It's all about being intentional. That was the way I decided to build my courage muscle, is I was just going to be the one that raised her hand. And I'll tell you, it worked for me. On the boards I serve, on the ones that do evaluations, I actually get a lot of credit and compliments for the courage I show in the boardroom. So you can build courage, you can build discipline, you can build whatever superpower you want. That's the beauty of a superpower. You actually don't have to be born with it. It's not like TV. You can decide what you want your superpower to be, and then just work on it, work on it, work on it, work on it.
Awesome. Adil Doshayed, one of our MBAs, asks, well, he says, thank you very much for your advice and inspiration. What are your recommendations on how to make friends in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, well, you're asking somebody who has moved around a lot. I've worked and lived in 18 different places. So if there's anything I know how to do, it's how to meet people, establish friends, and get networks going. So let's see. If you're already existing, well, let me just give you a couple examples, because this might help other people, because you get in your MBAs and stuff, and who knows, there might be relocations or new areas, new apartments, new neighborhoods you move into. Let me give you my first piece of advice. Get to know your neighbors. Most people don't. Most people don't. But your neighbors can be so helpful, especially if you travel, if you happen to be by yourself, whatever it is, because packages, look out for your place. I mean, you'd be amazed. So how do you meet neighbors? You borrow something. When you move into a neighborhood, you're unpacking. Everybody's been through that. Can you find a hammer or a screwdriver or whatever? Maybe, maybe not, but it doesn't matter. You borrow it anyway. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, I'm Shellye. I just moved in next door. Do you happen to have a hammer? Right? People get that. Now I have a chance to have two conversations. One, when I borrow the hammer, oh, thanks so much. How long have you been in the neighborhood? Blah, 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 blah. But then you get to have the second conversation when you return the hammer. Thank you so much for the hammer. I da 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 da, right? You get the conversation going. Whenever I move, within 2 months, I have a party. I have a party. And this is a very eclectic party because the party is whoever I've met in that period of time. And I've had parties where the UPS driver came and I mean, you laugh, I'm telling you, I invite everybody I have met. Why? Because you don't know who your friends are going to be yet, but by inviting people to something, some people will invite you to their something. And through that environment, you get to meet people. The other thing I've done when I moved to Silicon Valley, a deal just very specific, is that's when I started my gourmet dinner club. Because I'm like, okay, I need a social thing. I don't have a ton of time because I'm CEO, I'm doing all this stuff. So I'm going to try to integrate my life and do as many things in one event. I have told you, I like to cook. I like to entertain. I like people. I also happen to like wine. So I said, all right, I'm going to form a gourmet dinner club where we are going to eat and drink and get together and write, blah, blah, blah. And literally I would, as I meet people, no matter where it was, I just asked, oh, do you happen to like to cook? If they were people that I thought were interesting. I moved into Silicon Valley in like September. I had my very first gourmet dinner club in March. 5 couples, we had a dinner, right? It's now 50 people and I've been doing it for 15 years. So there are so many ways, whatever you're interested in, join a group or an organization and don't just join. If you want to meet people, take a leadership role, right? Volunteer, step forward. They're doing a big whatever, fundraiser for this, or they're trying to put together a new initiative, whatever. Step forward, because when you step forward and you're part of that, you get more visibility. And then people start to remember you and they see who you are and what you do. And, it's not as hard as you think it is to actually meet people and get engaged. You just have to be intentional. And that's the word, right? I've used it throughout our talk today. Just be intentional. You can absolutely make happen whatever it is you want.
So well said. I gotta, Shellye, when it comes time for my next trip to California, I have to give you a call for one of those gourmet dinner nights. Paige Harris, one of our MBAs, has a question for you. This is, I think, the last question due to time. Thank you so much for your time today, Shellye. In your book, Unapologetically Ambitious, you discussed how finding your cheerleaders is one of the most important actions you can take early in your career. So far in my career, I have been able to do this successfully, but I find it difficult sometimes to keep my cheerleaders engaged. Do you have any tips or advice on how we can continue nurturing these relationships?
Yes. Here's the fundamental secret to relationships. Every human being wants to feel cared for. Whether it's at home, you want to know through action, not words. You want to know through action that your family cares about you, right? Your spouse or your partner or boyfriend, whoever it might be, right? Your parents, if you have kids, you want to know your kids care about you. And you determine that by actions, not what they say. Well, guess what? That fundamental need to be cared for is true in the workplace as well. And it's true in society in general. Everybody wants to be cared about. So the best way to nurture relationships is to demonstrate that you care about people. And demonstrating that you care is taking an interest. It's showing that you're thinking about them, right? When they're not with you. It is, examples. It could be, that somebody's one of the people that your cheerleader is also an amazing tennis buff, right? Or fan. Great. You see the big opens coming or whatever it is, just say, hey, I saw the opens happening tomorrow. I'm sure you're going to be tuned in. Was just thinking about you. But how long did that take? 20 seconds. 20 seconds. But what did you do? You let them know you're thinking about them and that you care because you actually made it personal, not just, hey, thinking about you. Okay. It's kind of like a boyfriend saying, thinking about you. Okay. Right? No. You've got to make it personal. You've got to show why, what was the occasion, what prompted it, right? Then you feel Then you feel it. You want to keep relationships going, you have to show you care.
Yeah, that's really great advice. I like you, Shelley. Relationships, it's the most important thing to me, no doubt about it. I mean, if you're a networker, that's got to be the most important thing to you, is your relationships with others and so forth. One of the things I like to do is something very similar. You might know someone, for example, one of your close friends or close contacts, your top friends happens to be, for example, Muslim, and you know that it's the time of Ramadan or something like this. I like to just send a text message or something, just saying, hey, thinking of you, happy Ramadan, or hope you and your family. And I think also so important with that respect is you're not asking them for anything. In fact, it's just more, just like you said, it's just making them know that you're thinking of them, and that that they're important to you, basically, in a very kind of cool way, I think. Yeah, this has been great. Everyone, thanks for joining us today. I mean, it's really phenomenal to have Shelley on. And I got to tell you, Shelley, we're going to make sure to spread the word about unapologetically ambitious and everything that you stand for. I mean, I think it really resonates. Much of what you said, I think, really resonates with the culture that we have at A&M and at Mays Business School with our Aggie core values. I'm just looking forward to basically keeping in touch with you and to seeing you and how sort of your success continues. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the time with us today.
Absolutely. And thank you very much, everyone, for participating, for asking your questions. And feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I share, as Richard knows, but I share a lot of advice and perspectives and hopefully some inspiration. But I wish you all well. And I'm going to leave you with one point as we hit on 5 o'clock. Own your own career. You own your career, not your boss, not your mentor, not your spouse, no one. You own it. So be intentional with it. Decide what you want. Don't put your head down and wait for somebody to tap you on the shoulder and say, oh, you can go do this now. Oh, you can go do that now. That's not owning your career. You decide, be intentional, and I'm confident you'll be able to achieve what you want to achieve. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Take care. Thank you.